we have a panel of front women. Please join me in welcoming Jill Schweitzer, Caitlin Fink, and Rochelle Patil from Front. They will be talking about how they're striving to build a happier workplace from company values coming from product design and engineering. So let's do some introductions and start with Jill.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Schweitzer. I'm a product lead here at Front. I look after our product group that's focused on our end users who use Front to communicate with their customers on a daily basis. I joined Front about 8 or 9 months ago, most recently from Airbnb. And I actually wasn't looking to leave Airbnb when Front first reached out, but I was convinced for several reasons. First of all was the culture and the people. I was really impressed by the people I met during my interview process. Lots of great folks across teams and across functions. I was really excited in particular about 2 of the values that Front holds that really came through in my conversations with folks, which were transparency and low ego, which I'm sure we'll talk more about in just a little bit. The next thing that really was important to me was Front is in a really interesting size and stage. So my past experience in product was mostly focused recently on large late stage companies like Uber and Airbnb. And prior to that, I was on the opposite end of the spectrum, very small, very new, had my own startup and also joined a Series A company that was about 25 people as their first product person, but obviously very small, very early. And so this kind of sweet spot right in the middle, Front being Series C, about 350 people and growing rapidly, was a kind of spot along the spectrum that I was hoping to fill in my personal experience. So that was certainly compelling. And then actually getting to know the product and seeing it in action was kind of like a seeing is believing moment. During my interview process, my now manager gave me a demo of the product and showed me how it works. I instantly got it. It was kind of like really seeing the value of what we're delivering for customers and also seeing a lot of really interesting product work that I'd be able to help drive with the team moving forward. So those are kind of the reasons that I joined Front. I'll pass it on to Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Fink. I'm a product design manager here at Front based in San Francisco. I joined Front in August of last year. Prior to Front, I had worked at Pinterest and IDEO, where I've worked on everything from design operations to advertiser tools and redesigning a voting system. Similar to Jill, I was not looking for a new opportunity, but the more I learned about Front and met the people, it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. One of my main reasons was similar to the company size, especially as a manager and growing in my career. I was really excited to come and grow a world-class design team, recruit and hire, and then grow individuals' careers. Another piece that kind of swayed me was working for a female founded and CEO-led company. Matilda, our founder, is one of my inspirations in leadership, and I think her leadership style emulates throughout the company. And it was just too good of an offer to pass up. So I'll pass it off to Rochelle.
Hi there, I'm Rochelle. I joined Front around 6 months ago. Prior to this, I was at Salesforce, where I was running engineering for a product called Salesforce Communities. I came to Front because I wanted to sort of, have a change of pace after 14 years at Salesforce. I wanted to work at a startup that's well run. For me, people and culture, similar to what Jill and Caitlin mentioned, were really important. And I felt I really found through the interview process that I would have loved to work with the people that I talked to at Front. And then the other important aspect was the stage of the company, where I felt like Front was going through this rapid growth phase where someone like me could come in and make a difference and, help the organization scale up. So yeah, so that's about the experience, and really happy to be here.
So it sounds like you all have worked at several companies before joining Front. So in your experience, what are some things that are unique about how engineering, product, and design operate at Front? Rochelle, I think we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it really helps when you have transparency and care as part of your core values. Because what I feel is that at Front, we are not afraid to get into a healthy debate. When we need to make product decisions. We'll get in a room, a virtual room, and we'll express our opinions. We'll duke it out, but leave the room with a decision. And that decision could be that we are in full alignment, or it could be that we're going to disagree and commit. But the fact that we make a decision helps us move forward and stay really efficient. And then the other part, which is sort of very core to Front, is this habit of doing retrospectives, and it's part of our culture. We make decisions quickly, we move fast, we can make mistakes. We want to look back and learn from those mistakes, and this goes all the way from like our CEO, who does like a retrospective of Front at our all hands meeting, like how the past year has been, and down to like at a team level, where on a weekly basis we'll say, okay, what's gone well, what's not gone well, what can we learn from it. And it just helps us to reflect and sort of learn from mistakes and then move forward.
Another thing that's unique to Front is how we build empathy with our customers. So we all, as individuals, use our product day in and day out. And this helps everyone within the company, no matter what your role, understand our product and more about what our users are going through. And I've seen at other companies where maybe PMs or even sales end up being that voice of the customer, and then engineers and designers end up being further away, and it makes it harder to convince the team around what to prioritize. So it's much closer to home, and the product decisions are democratized across all of engineering, product, and design. But we also know that using our product isn't enough. So we need to talk to customers firsthand to hear from them what they're going through. And we have a number of ways to get customer insights that everyone in the company has access to. So we record customer videos with our go-to-market teams. We record our user research sessions. And then we have a shared product inbox that customers and sales and support team members can write into with product feedback. And knowing how important this customer feedback is, one team has even started at a weekly team sync, bringing in random insights that each team member finds and rotating and sharing them back with the rest of the team.
And then I think just adding another thought on a completely different note, Front also has kind of a fun game culture, games kind of being part of healthy competition and encouraging fun amongst employees. We have a literal gaming culture where actually board game nights are kind of a long-standing part of Front's kind of after work culture. So we do sometimes host game nights at the office where there's lots of different board games or card games or various things kind of happening at the same time. It's super inclusive. So, there may be multiple games set up at different tables, but it's always kind of a yes, come join us. And if there's a limited number of people in a game, people kind of sit and watch and learn for a round before hopping in. I think this is kind of unique because this kind of enjoyment of games goes all the way up to the CEO. So being able to kind of sit at a table and play a casual game with your CEO is, I think, a rather unique opportunity that I certainly haven't seen at other companies that I've been at necessarily. So that's been a lot of fun. And I think this also carries through with other traditions. Front is very much a kind of building and Lego-based culture. So you'll also notice in our offices across the globe, there are multiple different Lego sets represented across the office that employees have helped build. We get unique Lego figurines or sets for big company milestones. So that's kind of an interesting part of the culture that brings us together. And then finally, I think another kind of unique example of like fun and kind of encouraging people to participate is in our weekly all hands, which is on Zoom. I've never seen a more active chat. The chat is literally kind of blowing up whenever anybody is speaking. So throughout the all hands, through all the different segments, people are chatting away, adding reactions, commenting with emojis or plus ones. And it's just a really kind of fun and engaging example of how people are excited about, what each other are doing, but also supporting each other.
Thank you for sharing about the company culture. That sounds very exciting. I love Legos. So aside from fun and games, literally, how do you find yourself making tough calls at work? Can you share how you got out of a tricky situation?
Yeah, I can kick it off. So at the end of last year on our core product team that both Jill and I work on, we had a couple of projects that we thought would be really straightforward and we'd end up and we were trying to ship them by the end of the year, but they ended up being quite complex. And we realized that that end of the year timeline just wasn't realistic. So instead of kind of cutting corners or trying to like de-scope the project, we actually took a step back and reevaluated our plan. And I'm really proud to be on a team that doesn't cut those corners and is really making sure that we're solving true user problems holistically. So I'll pass it over to Jill to give a little bit more detail about that.
Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, so basically after realizing this project was way more complex than we had originally anticipated, besides kind of pivoting our course for this specific project, one thing we did was we started introducing new forums for our team to connect, and we made this more part of our ongoing process for product development as well. So taking this project as an example, we realized we would have benefited from syncing earlier as a full cross-functional team. So even before the product spec was fully written, getting engineering, product design, and our cross-functional stakeholders like data and research all together and aligned, even at that very, very early stage where we're still speccing it out, would be really beneficial for everybody on the team so that we're all in lockstep as we're exploring solutions, thinking about what potential designs could be, already kind of being aware of possible constraints or possible concerns that different functions might have. So now moving forward for any project kickoff, we actually kick off a lot earlier and with a larger part of the team before we're actually getting into speccing mode. And that way design is much better equipped with kind of the cross-functional story, including possible red flags when they're moving into design phase. We're also making sure to sync more frequently during this entire kind of process before handing off for full building mode. So we are doing weekly project-based syncs, sometimes more than once a week if, depending on the project cadence. We also set up project-based Slack channels. So we have the right people in that channel for any specific questions and just encouraging people to kind of keep up that asynchronous communication throughout the week. And making sure that we're more intentional about bringing in the cross-functional team, even during phases where they may not actually be needed yet for hands-on work. So I think it's been a really good kind of eye-opener and opportunity for us to refresh our approach for how we work together on any given project.
I think we have one more example. Jill, you want to set that up?
Sure thing. So another example of kind of how we've been working together as an engineering product and design org was last quarter, my team discovered that we actually had some additional complexity on a cross-team project. So this was not just us involved. We had some engineers from another team within Front who were helping us complete this solution. We realized it was clear that we were going to need more time for execution from both our own team and from our partner team. What this meant was that we'd actually be impacting multiple teams' roadmaps in terms of timing and just delivery of other projects that we had committed for the quarter. And we had to consider trading off some important tech debt work that was kind of well aligned across the organization that we wanted to commit to that quarter. And both teams that were involved in my team's project were also involved in kind of completing that technical debt project. So we were in a little bit of a sticky situation. Roshali, do you want to kind of round it out and get through that?
Yeah, and so, Jill and I were really trying to figure out how to move forward here. And, on one hand, we had this team that was working on this important project. It had been going on in full swing. On the other hand, we were getting delayed to start work on the technical debt work. And, when it comes to these situations, often people say, oh, just do like brutal prioritization, just stack rank. And it's not as simple as that because there are so many nuances that you need to consider. And in this case, we want to think about the impact on the team. What would their morale be if we abandon the feature at this stage? What would the cost of context switching be? And could the technical debt work be done in some other way? And, there are like people coming in from different points of view. There's no right or wrong. Like everyone has their sort of, the things they care about the most. And so we got into this discussion. We laid out all our cards, our concerns on the table. And then we ended up coming with a pretty creative solution. We found a way to work on the feature that we're working on the technical debt work as well. And we ended up deprioritizing something else that was lower down. And that really sort of, we were able to come up with this creative solution because we were sort of, having that frank discussion and came up with like an optimal outcome.
Thank you for that story. So now, apart from building projects, and what are some ways you find to collaborate? Rochelle, you're hiring. Can you share an example?
Yeah, I feel like one area beyond like making product decisions where we come together really well is when it comes to closing candidates. In general, at Front, we take our recruiting process really seriously. We want to make sure that our candidates get the best experience possible. But I think when it comes to closing candidates, we really go that extra mile. And this is an example from something that happened like a month ago. We were trying to close out on a candidate who had done well in our interview rounds. She had multiple offers, and we were trying to figure out how to convince her to join Front. Given the timelines, we had around 2 hours before the candidate was going to make a final decision. Our recruiter came up with this idea that why don't we create a video for her, each one of us saying why we like Front and how this could be a great place for her. And it was amazing to see how many people contributed to that video. We had 15 plus people sort of create these 2-minute clips, including our CEO. And it was a lot of fun putting it together. And that sense of sort of camaraderie that comes in, when we're trying to do these things is, I feel, what makes Front so special.
Yeah, and I still personally remember when I was making my decision last summer, all of the personal outreach that I got from people across the company, all different disciplines, all different levels, reaching out with some personal anecdotes about why they joined and why they're excited for me to join. And now on the other side of that, as a hiring manager myself, I understand how we use our product to collaborate behind the scenes and get all those personal touch points. So when we have an offer out to a candidate, the hiring manager and recruiter will send a conversation to the whole company celebrating the offer, but also sharing some sort of personal details about the candidate so that anyone who can relate to that can jump in and reach out directly. So maybe, for example, this candidate is moving to a new office location and they're curious about others who have made the move, or they're going from a large company to a small and are looking for someone who's done similar, or it might just be something totally outside of the company, like they're a photographer and they want to connect with other photographers. And then you'll see Frontiers just on their own initiate those reach outs and connections. And it's really awesome to see how our product can help us collaborate internally and externally to make future Frontiers feel included inside of Front.
I just realized what Frontiers meant. So I think we have like 1 more minute. So I wanted to ask a final question to you all. If you have a piece of parting advice for our attendees today.
Sure. I think one thing to keep in mind is that there will always be some natural tension between functions, which is totally expected. And honestly, it reflects each person caring about what their role is intended to prioritize. So I think the most important thing is to have open communication and to stay aligned, or flag when you're misaligned, and then establishing shared outcomes up front. So you can align on, for instance, like what problems you're solving, or what success looks like, or what outcomes you're driving for your users or customers, because those are the things that are ultimately going to bring everyone together and keep you focused, even when each function might have a slightly different point of view.
Yeah, and to build on that, I would say at the beginning of your time at any new company, take that time to really, like the first 2 weeks, month, you have a responsibility to make relationships and build those throughout the company. And that's really the only dedicated time where you'll have that space, and go beyond just like, hey, what team are you on? But make those personal connections, especially when we're remote. It'll help you so much later down the line, connecting with people outside of your team. And then when you do maybe end up going into an office, you remember something that you have in common with one of those coworkers.
Yeah. +1 to everything that Caitlin and Jill said. And I think the last thing I would say is, the collaboration between your PM and design partners doesn't need to be transactional, really take the time to invest in that relationships, because project deadlines come and go, products come and go, features come and go, and it's those relationships that will sort of transcend over all these boundaries.
Thank you for all that.
All right. Thank you so much, Jill, Caitlin, and Roshali from Front for sharing.